Oh, you damn right. Let's get a recruiting hour for a Wednesday, because that's what we do. Wednesday at 10, it's recruiting time, setting some official visits. There's a camp coming up this week, and the Longhorns are trying to build that 2026 class. So let's go. It's a recruiting hour. I'm Chad Hastings. That is Jason. I guess that is Jason Sukamel. Orange blood. I got to point.
I have to point the opposite direction to point.
I know. It's a whole thing. I've had to train myself on how to do it for house to. So it's like this. You got to go that way.
I'm so impressed that you get it right every time. Now, up and down, those are still the same, but left and right are
weird. Exactly. It's the left and right. Very weird. The mirroring is completely off. It's completely crazy. If y'all want to jump in the chat, feel free. Ben jumped in. What's up, Ben? If y'all want to send us a super chat, it will go right to the front. Of course, our man Money B in the building. Very early on, and Money B says that they need good news. They need
positive vibes today, Money B. We're going to do some predictions and
that's
only good predictions. Yeah,
it's going to be positive stuff. We will get into all of that. All of that. Some good news is coming, including some official dates that have been set. John Turntin has set his official visit date. That's right where we're going to start. It's what you want to hear about, and we will tell you all about it right after I tell you a little more about Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Our man, John, right down there at the bottom of the screen. You see him. You're going to see him the whole show. You see John Donovan just hanging out down there. But sometimes we throw him right in that field next to an actual Longhorn. John Donovan is a Longhorn through and through. He and his 6 siblings are Longhorns. He married a Longhorn. That family passion is what led John to brand the firm Longhorn Wealth Management Group. He's dedicated to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation for over 30 years. John is really excited to see the early momentum of the June official visit dates starting to get crowded with those top recruits. It's like John knows what we're going to talk about today. John's pumped about John Turntin. We'll give you those details coming up. And it's the kind of momentum that John wants to help all Orange Bloods fans achieve in their own wealth development process. So he's offering everyone, listen, a free 90-minute private consultation to learn how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. So you can call John at Longhorn Wealth at 972-707-4900 or go online to longhornwealth.net. Schedule that free 90-minute private consultation with John today. And John's always excited about the very latest in Longhorn sports, and that's what we're bringing you today. All right, Jason, let's get it out there. We've been talking about big John Turntin, badass tackle in this 2026 class. Some say he's a must-have for Texas in this class, and now we know when he's officially visiting Austin. What's the latest?
Yeah, I had reached out to his camp, so to speak, last week and said, hey, do y'all have any official visits set up? And they said, no, not right now. We're working on it. Someone said, I'll get back with you when we get some dates locked up. And sure enough, true to their word, I got some text messages on Sunday afternoon. So the first thing that they notified me that Texas has set up their official visit with John Turntin June 20th. Okay, that's a little interesting because June 13th is kind of shaping up to be maybe the bigger of the 2 weekends. There's June 13th, there's June 20th. There's going to be some visitors June 6th, but John Turntin's coming in June 20th. Well, he's actually visiting. I found out he's visiting A&M. It's June 5th, Chad, which is you'll be maybe interested in this. That's a Thursday. And I just assume sometimes guys will say that. I was like, oh, they're just off by a day. They're probably going to visit June 6th, which is Friday, right? But I've had a lot of recruits tell me, no, they're visiting A&M June 5th. So I don't know if A&M's doing like a Thursday, Saturday deal for some reason. I don't know, that's for A&M reporters to figure it out. But the date was June 5th for A&M. Then Tennessee, June 13th. He did just visit Tennessee for a junior day, so that's something to keep an eye on. And then John Turntin will be in Austin on June 20th. I was talking to somebody about this, might have been Anwar even, and he said, hey, that can maybe be a blessing in disguise to not bring him in with so many other players because you can give him a little bit more personalized attention, and there is some validity to that. So, but the big news is, and the bottom line, Texas needed to get him in for an official visit. He didn't come in for that junior day. Texas wants to get him in for an official visit. Obviously, that date's locked in. might he come in for a spring practice or maybe a recruiting event, something, pool party, whatever they do before that June 20th official visit? Very possible. I would think that's possible, maybe even likely. But in terms of official visits, those are the big visits, of course, the 48 hours, the university pays for everything. Texas is locked in for June 20th with John Turntin.
There you go. June 20th, Money B. Is that good enough? Huh? Good news, right? It's good news. Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing, Jason, as you laid out that date. You could make the argument either way that, if you're going to have a ton of big names and Turntin is one of them, then you sort of make the community argument of, okay, all these guys know how big a deal they all are, but then having Turntin there is a big thing. But I could also argue that if Turntin shows up by himself, that's a big official visit, and not just because he's a big offensive lineman, because he's this big a deal. So you could make I think you can make that argument either way. And obviously,
he definitely won't be by himself, because I know Max Wright, the Texas commitment, will be there that same week, and there'll be a few others. There's two ways to look at it. Yeah, you can give him more personalized attention. I kind of like. There's also kind of an infectious, when these guys are all there together and they start talking. Hey, man, let's play together here. So I think there's kind of a strength in numbers thing when you get a bunch of guys in on official visits together, guys that are close. So it can work both ways. We'll see how this unfolds, but Texas will get their shot with John Turntin for sure.
So John Turntin official visit on June the 20th. And we always remind you, check out Jason's 3-2-1 article at orangebloods.com. If you're not signed up for orangebloods.com, go ahead and get signed up. You get the 3-2-1 article each and every week. And we're going to be digging into some of the details there. Speaking of official visits, Jason, one of the guys you mentioned this week, I love a good name. Tank King. And when your name is Tank and you're a linebacker, I'm even more interested. And when you are top 5 in linebackers across the whole country, according to some ranking services, Rivals has him at number 5, I think, linebacker in the nation, if I'm reading that correctly. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So what do we need to know about Tank King? When's he going to hit Austin for the official visit?
Yeah, Tank, again, man, he gave me dates for 3 visits, and they were all Thursday starting dates, okay? He has Texas A&M the 5th, Texas the 12th, and Notre Dame would be the 19th. Texas doesn't do that. So I was like, Tank, are you sure? Tank's an awesome kid, by the way. But I said, you sure you're giving me Thursday dates? Are you meaning that it's going to be Friday? And he goes, no, Thursday. So I'm putting him in for Thursday. We'll adjust it moving forward if necessary. Now, A&M, like I said, seems to be doing a lot of Thursday official visits starting on Thursday.
Yeah.
Texas, I don't see Texas bringing him in on the 12th when they got everybody else coming in on the 13th. So I think that's going to get adjusted and probably be the 13th of June. Friday the 13th, ironically, of course. But
well, it's also weird, Jason, like if you told me it was the 12th for him and he was thinking of trying to get to somewhere else on the 13th, or, if they all weren't Thursday dates, then maybe there's a little confusion. The fact that they're all that way, is a little bit interesting.
Yes. But again, I mean, that's 4 months away. So maybe he just has his calendar off or something, but you got to remember, if he comes in on Thursday, it wouldn't be the 13th. Well, unless he did a 1-day official visit, but they get 48 hours. So if he comes, and I tell you what he might be thinking, Chad, as I kind of talk this out loud, a lot of times they'll bring these guys up, but this usually applies to out-of-state guys. They'll bring them in on Thursday night. Okay. They'll fly them in, they'll put them up in a hotel. And then Friday morning, they go to campus and meet with the coaches. Well, that official visit, the 48 hours, you get 48 hours for an official visit. It doesn't start until they meet with those coaches on Friday morning. So you can fly them in on Thursday, put them up in a room, you see them Friday. So maybe that's what Tank's planning on doing, but he's an in-state guy. Usually those guys just drive up Friday morning and start their visit. But regardless, Tank King's coming in that big weekend of the 13th. He'll either be there from the 12th through the 14th or the 13th through the 15th. Again, we'll adjust that and we'll follow up with him closer to the visit. But, Tank's a really good prospect. You mentioned top 5 linebacker in the country, Rivals 100 member. I think, Chad, that one probably will come down to Texas or Texas A&M. Notre Dame obviously getting an official visit. He mentioned to me a couple others. He said he'd like to go maybe see Nebraska, Tennessee, Michigan. Okay, those kind of 6 schools are the ones he's mainly focused on. I think ultimately it comes down to Texas and Texas A&M. We'll see if one of those other schools like Notre Dame can kind of creep up there at the top. But I think it's going to be a close battle. He did come in for the Texas Junior Day. Really spoke highly of Johnny Nansen, said he and his family got to go sit down with Johnny Nansen in his office one-on-one and go over Tank's film. And Johnny Nansen's like, hey, love your game, dude. Here's a couple things maybe we can work on to make you even better. So he really appreciated that. He said, hey, Johnny Nansen's almost like a father figure to him. But there is also a lot of A&M buzz. So it's going to be a really contested battle here. I think it'll be Texas or Texas A&M in the end. Both those schools will be getting them on official visits in June.
Yeah, Jason, I'm glad you said that. I wanted to bring it up if you didn't, but I get the idea that these recruits are really savvy and they're going to say things that they think will either keep the fans, on the hook, or they're not going to say. But he's like a second father to me. When I read that, I'm like, wait, what?
Well, let me tell you how that quote came about, because I was like, dude, I said, Tank, what's that like for you, man? You're 17, maybe even 16, I don't know. And you go sit down in that coach's office one-on-one. It's like, does your heart race? And he never goes, no, man, I love Johnny Nansen. He's like a second father to me. I was like, okay. Yeah. So we spoke really highly of him. He also spoke highly. A lot of those Port Arthur guys, I mean, there's a lot of that connection to Texas. He said, hey, Jalen Gilbo is his cousin. He mentioned Tynton Smith he used to work out with. He's, like I said, he said, Jalen Gilbo, that's my cousin. And he said both those guys have given him strong reviews of their time at Texas, including Tynton in his first year. So, that can carry a lot of weight too when you hear positive reviews from your peers.
Yeah, that's big. All right, we got a couple other official visit dates set that we're going to tell you about. Remember, you can jump in the chat if you just need to share feelings like Ben with a let's go and a hook 'em. If you need to share feelings like Tej did. Tej has some feelings, capital letters with an exclamation point of OU sucks. If you want to send us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list if you are throwing something in the old tip jar. We appreciate you. We appreciate those of you that are in the Specs chat right now. Speaking of Specs, let's give them a little love, because speaking of love, Valentine's Day is just a couple days away. If you need a romantic bottle of wine, they've got a sale going on.
With hundreds of wines on sale, Specs is turning these aisles into the ultimate love story.
Uncork something special during Specs' huge wine sale, going on now. Specs, the fun starts.
Hey, Chad, I got to interrupt real quick. Do you have Valentine's plans with your wife?
Yes. My wife and I are at that point in our lives where the whole goal is just find some place where we don't think a lot of people are going to be. Okay. And so we got a place picked out in beautiful Maynard, Texas, and we're just going to go have dinner. Yes.
Yeah, smart. We don't ever do anything. So you know what my Valentine's plans are?
What's that?
We'll talk about it in this Under Armour camp's up in the Dallas area. Well, the camp's on Sunday, but I'm going to go up on Friday. I'm going to spend Valentine's night with my man, Jason Howell, who works for Texags. So he used to work on Orange. So that's my Valentine's. I asked my wife, I was like, you cool? I don't get to see Hal very much anymore. She goes, I don't care. We don't do anything on Valentine's Day anyway. So maybe I'll go to lunch with her and then I'll hit the road. But yeah, my Valentine's evening will be spent with Jason Howell and his lovely fiance. So
look at you.
Third wheel. I'm third wheeling it if there ever was a third wheel. Yes. Yeah, so.
That is awesome. Just for, hey, John, I think you'll understand, but just for a moment, let's throw up House Divided. I mean, come on. Can't we all just get along? Look at that.
Jason Howell, who I think went to Baylor, grew up an Arkansas fan, worked at Orange Bloods, and now works at Texags, if I've got that correct. So,
that is fantastic.
I love Hal, one of my best friends, man.
Shout out to Hal. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So if you want to throw in something on the chat, you can. Rolling through some official visit dates that have been set. As Jason's told you, John Turntin scheduled to come in on that 20th weekend, June 20th, and then June 12th, 13th, right around there, that big weekend. Tank King is part of it. Jason, let's hit a couple other names. One we talked about before, and one I don't know that we talked a whole lot about, but let's get Mark Bowman's name into the universe here. I love the tight end position. I'm seeing him as Rivals number 2 tight end in America. So, what do we need to know on the visit?
Probably should be talking a little bit more about. And the reason we haven't talked a lot about him, he just reclassified just recently. He was a 2027 guy who reclassified to 2026. And usually when those guys reclassify, you see them drop in the rankings quite a bit. Mark Bowman's still 24th nationally, regardless of position. So he's still, as it stands right now, a 5-star player. I think when he was in the 2027 thing, let me see if this pulls up. Yeah, he was like top 5 in something like that in the country, Chad. 'Cause I remember talking to him way back when. He's still a young pup, but he was a really young pup then. I was like, dude, I remember telling him, you might be the highest ranked tight end I can ever remember seeing. I mean, he's that good. But Mark Bowman is out of Mater Dei, out in California, in the Powerhouse program at California. Chris Jackson, Sark have ties there. He is coming in that weekend of June 6th. So it'll be the first weekend of June.
Okay.
Georgia's thought to be a major player there. I mean, I don't want to say it's Georgia and Texas because I think there'll be some other schools involved, but those seem to be the 2 schools that everybody's kind of talking about the most. Mark has already visited Texas on an unofficial visit. Again, he'll be June 6th for that official visit. Now, remember, he's a young dude, right? So he reclassified. He's going to graduate a whole year early. So I don't expect he's the type that maybe will take commitment or take visits and maybe commit in July, because he's not going to be an early enrollee. He's probably going to take things a little bit slower because he's just kind of moving this process up into warp speed, if you will. So, a couple of months ago, he was thinking, I got like, whatever, almost 2 years to sign. Now it's like, well, I got, a little over a year and so not even a year, I guess 8 months or so. So I think maybe he'll take this thing a little bit slower than some of these other guys, but he's a big time prospect, 6'5", 225, prototypical tight end, can do it all out of a powerhouse program. So that's a big story for Texas to get him in for that official visit. I need to follow up with Mark just to kind of get the layout of all of his other visits. I'm sure Georgia will get one. We'll see who else he visits. But right now, it looks like maybe Texas and Georgia are the 2 teams to beat in that race.
And I think the other thing, Jason, let's reiterate your point, because I thought the same thing. I was trying to find him. You threw his name out to me, and I'm like, I know that name. And I start looking, and I realize, oh, wait, he was a 2027. He's reclassified. How rare is it that a guy would reclassify and stay that highly ranked? I mean, normally, like you said, the ranking gets affected a little bit, and they maybe have to work their way back up. But what does it say to you that he is that highly ranked in 2026, even after that reclassification?
Yeah, Quinn Ewers didn't affect his ranking, but it seems like lately, most of these guys, when they reclassify, they drop down a little bit, and I don't know why that is necessarily, but that just seems to be the pattern. But Bowman, again, man, he is a unicorn in terms of tight ends. I mean, I haven't studied him a ton, but just in talking to people and just looking at his ranking previously, I mean, literally, I said to him, I was like, you might be the highest ranked tight end I've ever seen and ever written about. So I just think he's that good, man. Like, I mean, there is not a weakness in his game. I mean, he's I guess technically a sophomore in high school, but 6'5", 225. And is that not prototypical frame right there as a sophomore, somewhat junior in high school? Yeah. I mean, the guy's just got always a complete package. He's not a tight end who can only block or who can only catch. He's not one dimensional. So I just think he's that highly thought of. And there's a reason schools, I mean, if you look at his offer list, I mean, obviously you got Georgia and Texas, I've mentioned, right? I mean, you can pretty much Ohio State, Oregon, Tennessee, Miami, LSU, Florida, Alabama. I mean, anybody and everybody, Michigan, Oklahoma. I mean, the big Texas A&M. I mean, all the big schools. I tell you what, he's a guy who just reclassified. He could pick up the phone today and commit to probably any school in the country. He's that well thought of as a prospect.
Yeah. So Mark Bowman coming in on June 6th, that first of 3 weekends in June. It feels like they're going to, everybody's kind of stacking into one of those 3 weekends at this point. So Mark Bowman, definitely on that list to watch. A name we've talked about, Jason, before at the running back position is Javion Osborne. We got an official visit date for him set.
Yeah, he's locked in for that June 13th weekend, that big weekend, which is interesting. Not, I kind of figured that would be the weekend for him, but KJ Edwards will be on campus that same weekend. They did have both those.
The dual backfield weekend, huh?
The dual backfield weekend. Yeah, and they had both those guys on campus for the junior day. So, and it's a different time with running backs. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where they wanted to be the one guy in their recruiting class. Now they look at it like, hey, I can come in and we can be thunder and lightning or lightning and lightning or whatever, but, maybe save some wear and tear on their bodies. Guys are more receptive to that. So I did make a prediction in my 3-2-1 that Texas is going to get both those running backs. And I think I talked to maybe on this show last week. I said, if you ask me who's leading for Javion Osborne, I'm going to say probably Texas. Although schools like Michigan are involved there, there's some Alabama he wants to go see, but I'd say Texas right now. KJ Edwards, who's the leader for KJ Edwards? I'd probably say Texas. I mean, Texas A&M's involved there. There's some other schools heavily involved there, but can Texas get both of them? At first, I was like, you know what? That's going to be tough. 2 in-state backs. They're both Rivals 100 members. But then I was like, if anybody can pull that off, it's Tashard Choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tashard Choice, we know now is going to be in Austin for the foreseeable future. These dudes both love Tashard Choice, as does anybody I've ever communicated with loves Tashard Choice. So I kind of stuck my neck out a little bit, and I said, hey, individually, yeah, I think Texas is the team to beat. Collectively getting both, that kind of muddies the waters a little bit. But I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit and predict Texas to get both of them. But they'll both be in on that June 13th weekend. Javion Osborne just announced that this week. So another big addition for Texas for that weekend.
Yeah, that is huge. And Jason, you just kind of segued right into the next conversation, because Javion Osborne is also not only he's a part of your prediction at the end of the 3-2-1 in terms of those 2 running backs. He's also a part of your future cast list. Jason put out, was it 12 at one time this week?
I did 12 future cast predictions, and we can go through them one by one. I'm going to put this up by Ben G. Aren't they similar backs? Oops, I started. Somewhat, Ben, but not. Javion's much more compact than, I wouldn't say, I would put Javion as more like Jaden Blue, KJ more like Trey Wisner, if you will, just in terms of their frame and stuff. So, they're not, they can do a lot of the same things, but they're not they're not identical by any means. I mean, neither one's your big bruiser. Osborne's 5'10", 195. I'm not sure what we have KJ at. KJ is 5'10", 175. So there's a good 20-pound difference there. And then just in talking to them, I mean, they're strikingly different in their frames and things, but they can do a lot of the same type of things, but they're both good enough backs. You certainly take them both.
Ben, we appreciate the chat. If anybody wants to throw in, again, super chat will go right to the top of the list. So, and again, looking at Jason's 3-2-1 article, Javion Osborne is one of those guys in the future cast picks. Jason, you just laid out a lot on Javion. Anything else you want to mention before we move to the next guy?
Yeah, I just, I feel pretty, and I'll tell you one thing also, Chad, and you and I haven't even talked about this. I'm working on my recruiting board, my first recruiting board for this 2026 class that I hope, knock on wood, because it's going to drive me crazy. That first edition is always the worst because there's so much information. I put it in these tables and things, and just try every year when I do it, that first one, I'm like, why do I do this damn thing? But then the readers love it, so I continue to do it. But I'm hoping to have that out Thursday, okay? And I'll have not predictions necessarily, but I'll have percentages for where I think Texas stands with every player on the board. So keep an eye out for that Thursday, and then I'll go through it in the war room. But Javion, I just feel like Texas is the team to beat there. I know he loves Michigan, okay? He wants to visit some other places. But I just think in the end, it just comes back to Texas and Tashard Choice. I feel pretty confident there. I don't have my recruiting board pulled up in front of me, so I don't remember exactly what I put it at, but I would get, I probably would put him at 60, 65% Texas. Now, when I say all these math geeks are like, well, you can't say that if you got 10 schools, I'm like, no, just think of it this way. Texas 65, the field 35, okay? So I'm just saying collectively, I think there's a 6.5 out of 10 chance that Javion Osborne winds up at Texas, okay? So I do have my future cast. I literally put it in for Javion this week, and I feel pretty good about it. But schools like Michigan, some of these other things could impact things. Obviously, if KJ Edwards commits, that could impact things. But right now I'm going with Javion Osborne to Texas.
All right, Jason, before we mention this next name, I want to go back real quick to Mark Bowman, because Mark Bowman is one of those guys. He's on my all-picture team. Sometimes I look at the Rivals picture of a guy, and I just think, now that's a football player right there. Bowman's got a great one. This next guy, Jaylen Lot, I love this picture. Just looks like the guy you want on your football team. Jaylen Lot, badass wide receiver.
Actually,
Jason,
Texas, they might want to update that because Texas is recruiting him as a defensive back first.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
yeah.
So listed here as a wide receiver, but they're recruiting him on the defensive side.
Yeah, some schools are talking wide receiver, some are talking DB, some are talking both. Texas is saying, hey, cornerback with some offensive packages. You talking about his Rivals profile picture? Is that the picture you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just looks like no business, no nonsense, all business, right?
Exactly. Yeah, just looks like a monster, whatever you need him to be.
And he is that type of player. Now, and I talked to Jaylen after the junior day he came in, and that was my first time to actually speak with him in person. And you're very, very personable. And I mean, so that picture, he looks like he would rip your head off if you say the wrong thing, but actually a real nice kid. James Lot, his dad played at Texas. We've talked about that. So, Jaylen, like, people think with Jaylen Lot or Caden Finley, they're like, oh, wait, those dudes, their dads played at Texas. They're going to Texas. Maybe not. I do think Jaylen winds up at Texas, but I don't think it's a slam dunk everybody thinks it is. Kind of like Shane Rink last year, or Landon Rink last year. His dad played at Texas. He winds up at A&M. I think it was a really good take for A&M. So, but you can't take them all. So we'll see. But Jaylen Lot is an absolute no-brainer, 100% take every day of the week. I think it'll be Texas. So I'm predicting him in this class. I've got my future cast in. But they're going to have to work. Texas is going to have to work a little bit in that one. He's not going to just walk through the doors just because he has some family ties to the program.
Interesting. Okay. Let's move to a name we have. I know we've talked about a little bit. I think last week you got into Zayden Krempin a little bit. You got him future casted right now to Texas.
I do. And some of these are a little bit bigger guesses maybe than others, because we're still a ways away from most of these guys committing. Obviously, NIL things can move these things in a hurry. So it's harder to predict these things with much confidence than really it's ever been before. But in talking to Zayden, okay, he's coming in that June 13th weekend for his official visit. He came in for the Texas Junior Day. He loves A&M. He loves Texas. There's 5 or 6 schools still in the mix for him. I just think he really likes what Kyle Flood is pitching to him. Okay, I think he loves what he sees at the University of Texas, the development. My only concern at predicting some of these offensive linemen, they've already got Max Wright committed. What if Felix Ojo commits? Does Zayden Krempin then look at it and say, hey, hold on, they've already got 2, offensive tackles, highly ranked tackles. Maybe I should go somewhere else where it's not so stockpiled. But, Zayden's a really talented player. I don't think he's afraid of competition. He is 159, so he's a Rivals 250 member, excuse me. I just think Texas is the team to beat right now. Again, a lot of moving parts in these things. Certain guys commit, it can affect things. So, I normally don't make future cast picks this early unless it's a guy I'm really confident in. But this time I said, hey, I'm going to have a little fun, and I'll try to remember, like if things change in June or July, I'll try to remember, go back in, and you can always change them to different teams. But as things stand right now, I don't think there's a team I'd put above Texas. So I've got my pick in for Zayden Krempin to Texas.
Yeah, and you know what, Money B? You want some more good news? The next guy on this list, Felix Ojo. Jason just mentioned him, the stud out of Mansfield. Jason, right now, you think Texas is the team to beat there?
I do. I mean, Texas needs to load up on offensive linemen, and it's a good year to do it. There's some really good in-state guys. We've talked about a couple of them. We'll talk about a couple more even. But, Felix Ojo, I just think Texas, especially after that junior day visit, is the clear team to beat there. He likes Michigan. He likes Ohio State. He's talked about Ole Miss. He did come in for the junior day. He's got his official visit set for June 13th. I think Texas can't afford to miss on Felix Ojo, right? You better get Ojo and or Turntin. You'd like to get both, but you damn well better get one of the two. So, Kyle Flood does a good job in those situations. I think Felix is really feeling Texas lately. And again, he's got his eyes on some out-of-state schools, and he's serious. It's not just lip service. He really likes some of those out-of-state schools. But I think Texas has a pretty strong lead right now, and I think Texas is going to hold on to that lead and eventually land Felix Ojo.
Before we move on, Jason, let me ask you to kind of re-clarify what you just said, because at one point I know there's been discussion of Texas has to get Turntin at all costs. Have you adjusted to one of those two guys fills that need? Like you said, both would be amazing, but one of those two guys, you'd tell Texas fans to be happy with that?
Yeah, I think so. Felix Ojo right now Rivals has him rated higher than John Turntin. I'm not sure I agree with that. They're both so damn good. It's hard to pick one. I think Felix has a more projectable NFL frame than Turntin. What is Felix? 6'7"? Yeah, 6'7", whereas Turntin's 6'4", 6'5", maybe. He's got more of a textbook tackle frame. And a year ago, or probably 6 months ago or whatever, we were saying, hey, Texas has to get Turntin, right? Especially if Texas didn't get Fasusi, which didn't happen. They have to get Turntin. Well, now I think people are starting to see Felix Ojo. Wait, he and Turntin are in that same category. They're both five-star type players. Felix was at that Navy All-American game, performed really well down there against some guys a year older than him, best of the best in the country. So, yeah, I think you can say, hey, if you get either one of those two, and then obviously you got to get some other guys to fill out the class, you feel really good. You got your kind of bell cow left tackle. If you can somehow get both of those guys in the same class and then figure it out, whoa, that's a grand slam and then some.
Gotcha. All right. And speaking of cool names, let's throw cool names together. How about Ojo and Toa Katoa in the same class? It could happen. And you've got the future cast on Katoa for Texas right now.
I do. This one I'm not as confident in maybe as some of the others, but he's been to every Texas recruiting event. Kyle Flood's made him feel, like a priority, and he is a priority. There's some talk like maybe even SMU's in play there. He went to their junior day. He listed a top 5, and I don't have it handy. I think Oklahoma's a player there, but I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves on this one, Chad. I mean, it seems like every time I show up at a pool party or a junior day or even a game, I'm like, oh, there's Toa Katoa. He's here again. So I think Texas has a really good shot there. But I would put, if I'm playing Texas versus the field there, maybe 55-45, so a little bit closer. But I do think Texas is in a really good spot there. And again, man, I trust in Kyle Flood. You're playing in the SEC. Just Texas has so much to sell. I know his dad really likes Texas. I've spoken briefly with Toa's dad, Tony Katoa, and he really likes Texas and Kyle Flood. So had a really good junior day visit. So I'm favoring Texas just ever so slightly in that one.
There you go. All right, moving on from Katoa, but staying on that interior offensive line, Nicholas Robertson out of the Klein area. You got him on the list.
Yeah, I do. And Nick's a little bit tougher to read. I haven't connected with him, in a couple weeks. He did come to the junior day. I ultimately think it'll come down to Texas or Texas A&M for Nick. But, he loved, what I'm hearing is he loved that Texas visit. There's a little bit of confidence there. So I went with Texas. And again, Texas has to load up on offensive line. He's more of an interior guy. So it kind of works. Maybe you get Toa Katoa and him as interior guys. You get a couple of those tackles. It just seems to fit. The pieces seem to fit. So I think it'll be Texas or Texas A&M for Nick. Right now, I've got Texas, but that one I think is pretty close too.
Jason, real quick, a chat here from Ben. See if you agree. Says you grab both of them. I'm assuming meaning Ojo and Turntin. This would be the 2022 O-line class all over again, right?
Yeah, maybe even better because both those dudes, I mean, yes, you had, well, in terms of tackle, I mean, you had Kelvin Banks. DJ Campbell was a 5-star, but he was an interior guy all the way. So to get 2 potential 5-star tackles in the same class, and then you maybe throw in a couple of these interior offensive linemen, it would be in that same kind of class in regards of just how highly rated that offensive line class is, but a little bit different because you'd have a couple like true offensive tackles potentially. Whereas that now, Cam Williams, obviously offensive tackle, but that class, you didn't have the 2 true blue chip 5-star potential offensive tackles in that class. You had DJ at the interior, Kelvin as a tackle, but yeah, it'd be in that same realm, Ben. It'd be a magnificent class.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, 6 down, 6 to go. Again, there's 12 guys on this future cast list for Jason in the 3-2-1 this week. Second half starts with, oh, please let it be Holla. Tiki Holla. Hola. Jason, tell me that's how he says his name, please.
I've only called him Tiki, so I don't know, but I think it's Hola. But
so close.
And you know what? I put this one in, Chad, when I wrote my column on Monday, and now I'm having a little bit of reservations, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I hit Tiki up, I think it was like right after I published it or something, and I had hit him up earlier, but he responded. I said official visits. And he said to me, yeah, he's got 3 official visits. He's got SMU May 2nd. He's got Southern Cal June 6th, Notre Dame June 13th. I'm like, oh, okay, no Texas visit. He wasn't at the Texas Junior Day. He's been at like every Texas recruiting event. He's been to so many Texas home games. And then I asked Tiki, I said, hey, do you think Texas will get an official visit out of you? And I didn't hear back. I still haven't heard back. So
Interesting.
maybe he just hasn't seen my message. I don't know. But
Okay.
I'm like, okay, is that a sign? Maybe I think maybe it should be. So I know he likes Texas. He's from Bastrop. Texas likes him. He's been on campus a ton. So we'll see. We'll see on that one, Chad. But that one's I'll be keeping an eye on. Maybe as I may be possibly having to change that one down the road. We'll see.
Gotcha. I think Tiki needs to holla back at Jason. That's what I think. Hola. That's it. Last one, I promise. Especially if it's Hola. Tiki Hola is kind of a cool name too. All right. We talked about this guy, Jason. You talked about the Carthage running back earlier in KJ Edwards. This is Carthage linebacker DeQuivius Beck. Is that how we're
DeQuivis? Yeah,
DeQuivis Beck. Okay.
Yeah. Again, another one that I'm kind of sticking my neck out a little bit here. I just trying to predict how the linebacker cards are going to come together. He's an in-state guy. It's not a deep. I mean, you got Tank King, you got Kosiopala, and then Quee Beck are kind of the main in-state guys Texas is looking at linebacker. Here's the deal. This one could all come down to just how hard Texas pushes. He likes Texas a lot, likes A&M too. His dad likes Texas a lot. He was at the junior day. It really comes down to, I think, how much Texas pushes there for Quee Beck. I think some things might have to fall in place there. But if Texas does decide to make him a priority, I think the staff has a really good chance of landing him.
There you go. All right. Defensive side of the ball there with Beck. We'll stay on that side of the ball. Brock King, great basic name out of Port Arthur Memorial, a cornerback. He's on the list.
He is. Texas is really making him a priority. I mean, he loves everything about Texas. As long as Texas continues to push there, I feel pretty good about that one. I haven't got to that part of my recruiting board, but if I do, he'll be in the 65, 70% realm for me, which is pretty high for me. I'm usually pretty conservative on those numbers. So I think Texas is in a really good spot for Brock King. They're the biggest school that's pushing the hardest. He likes Terry Joseph. He's cousins with Ty Anthony Smith. He's friends with Jalen Gilbo. He's knows a lot of players on the Texas team. So that one just makes a lot of sense. If Texas continues to push for Brock King, I think Texas lands him.
All right, Jason, this next name is a monster. It's one we've talked about, and you also have added information in the 3-2-1 this week on Jamarion Carlton out of Temple, the badass edge. Rival says he's the number 4 edge rusher in the country. What's the update? You got obviously the update's got to be at least pretty good. You got him on the FutureCast list.
Well, I do. I put my FutureCast in, but I'm telling you, like, it's not the slam dunk I think a lot of people think. He's from Temple, right up the road from Austin, right? Yeah. He's visited Texas a ton. He was at the junior day. And I even asked Jamarion, I said, hey, dude, why do you think everybody thinks you're a lock for Texas? Because I've talked to Jamarion a bunch. I don't get the impression he's a lock by any means. And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I think it's just because I've been there a bunch. Maybe I show up to campus a lot. He's been to games, so on and so forth. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. And that does account for something. I mean, we're all going to pay attention to that. But I do think he's a little bit more open-minded than people think. He hasn't set up any official visits. I think Texas will get one, but he's like, I don't know, honestly. He goes, I'm going to kind of wait until March and spring ball, and then I'll kind of see who's making me feel like a priority and then set my visits. I think Texas will get one of those visits, but he didn't say, oh, yeah, for sure, Texas will get a visit. So all that being said, I just look at kind of the reading between the lines here a little bit. It just looks good for Texas for a guy from Temple who's been on campus a lot, has a good relationship with the staff. So I am predicting Texas, but I do think Jamarion's a lot more open than a lot of people realize.
Interesting. All right, Jason, we're going to finish off with a couple names and a couple great Rivals pictures. Peyton Porter. Jason, I know why those Melissa offensive linemen are highly touted, because they got to block dudes like this on the edge. What a great picture of Peyton Porter. You got him on the FutureCast list.
Yeah, getting these dudes all like put on their angry face. But I talked to Peyton. He was at the junior day, like super nice kid. Like, really enjoyed talking to him. I was like, okay, I don't want to piss you off, but like you seem like a really nice kid when we talk. But I've got Texas there, taking him as an edge defender. And again, to me, this one comes down to how hard Texas pushes. But they did bring him in for the junior day. They talked him up a lot at the junior day. Would they take his commitment today, Chad? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But, I mean, if you look at his offer list, Texas is the biggest of his offers. They're the big in-state offer he's got. So that one just makes sense. But, again, it could come down to what other guys are in the mix there. If they get Jamarian Carlton, do they want a second edge? So some moving parts there, but I think right now, I stuck my neck out a little bit. I think right now Texas is probably the team to beat there, but we kind of maybe need to see how some other things fall together there too.
Yeah. All right, Jason, and let's round out the list with a guy that I don't know that we've talked a ton about on this show, but I feel like maybe we should have. Chase Calicut. Out of North Shore, obviously a big-time program in the Houston area. He's a safety, and I'm seeing him here, rivals saying he's the number 4 safety in the country. That's a badass kind of number. The picture is badass, and you got him on the FutureCast list.
I do. Big-time safety, big, tall, like 6'4", rangy safety. He flat out said after that junior day, Texas is the team to be. And you said badass picture. You talk about a kind of an infectious smile, and like even his mom and dad were there, and his mom's like coming up to everybody, and like I think she might have hugged a couple of reporters, maybe Sunny. like she wanted all of our Twitter handles, and like, make sure you're following me. His mom, she was awesome, right? So like when I wrote about Chase recently, I tagged his mom on social media so she could see it.
What up, Miss Calicut?
Yeah, so I mean, really just a fun family, and just very excited, very appreciative. It was kind of refreshing to talk to him. But Chase is a 6'4", like I said, tall, long, rangy safety from a power program at North Shore. He came out. Texas just offered him recently. It's maybe been probably not even quite a month yet. But he came up to that junior day, came out and said, yeah, Texas is my team to beat. So I think there's a really good shot, Texas, as long as things stay the course. I think Texas has a really good shot to land Chase Calicut.
And Jason, I'm one of those football fans. You tell me a corner or safety is 6'1", I get excited. You add an inch to that, I get even more. You know what I mean? You go to 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", big, the arm span, big condors out there. I love those kind of defensive backs, especially if they're this highly ranked and he's 6'4", like that jumps out to me right away.
Well, he fits that bill for sure.
Yeah, that's impressive. All right, so those are all the guys that are on the FutureCast list for Jason. I'll throw up that QR code one more time for you for orangebloods.com. The 321 article, it's there. That bold, including the bold prediction at the end of maybe both running backs. Jason laid out that argument for you, Osborne and Edwards. Maybe it's a possibility. He says right now that is the way he would lean. So check out orangebloods.com for that article, all the latest information. Also, Jason, Orange Bloods will be a great place for them to go after this camp. You briefly mentioned it, where you're headed this weekend, but the Under Armour camp is happening in Max Wright's neck of the woods.
Very much in his neck of the woods at Melissa High School. So I'll be there. The camp's on Sunday. A lot of these guys we talked about, they do have a camp. Well, Peyton Porter's from Melissa. So a lot of these guys we talked about will be there. There is a Under Armour camp down in Houston. I believe that one's in March. So, but a lot of your, I think, DFW area guys, maybe some East Texas guys from Oklahoma, Arkansas usually come to this. It's always a good camp that Under Armour puts on. I'll be out there. Orange Bloods will be out there. I'll be out there on Sunday to cover it. I may come back from that, Chad, and say, hey, I need to change some of these future casts, or I may want to add a couple more future casts. We'll see, but it'll be a good chance to go out there and watch some of these guys work out, do a bunch of interviews. Should have some really good content coming out of that over the weekend and spilling into next week.
Yeah, that updated 321 next week should be really interesting if that future cast list looks a little different. Real quick, Jason, is there a name, whether it's somebody we talked about today, it's somebody that's in your article or not, is there a name that he's going to be there and you're really pumped to see him coming up? Like, do you have any of those?
No, I haven't seen. Usually today is the day when on Wednesday before the camp, they'll release sent to the media rather. Here's expected there. But I would expect you'll see maybe a guy like Felix Ojo and John Turntin. Those guys don't mind going out and competing at those camps, right? Turntin was at the Rivals camp last year. Now it's a little bit different. They're in their senior year. They don't need to prove anything to anybody. But sometimes those guys just like to compete, like Michael Fasusi. He loved to go out there and compete at those camps. So I'm hoping to see a lot of those offensive linemen out there at this camp. Maybe Zayden Krempin comes out. So I think it'll be a good camp. It always is, but I don't have any definitive names just yet.
Yeah, keep an eye peeled there for orangebloods.com coming off of that event on Sunday. Should be really interesting. All right, before we wrap up here, let me tell you about Longhorn Wealth Management. One more time, our man John, he is, like we talk about, through and through Longhorn. How about this? Served 15 years as the Dallas, Texas X's board member up there, and he's still up there, but now he's helping lead the build out of the Collin County Texas X's chapter. And John wants to congratulate fellow lifetime Longhorn Blake Gideon on his big career advancement as the new DC at Georgia Tech. It's very nice of you, John. Very nice of you. In honoring Blake's promotion, John wants to help all OB fans promote their own financial success by taking advantage of John's offer of that free 90-minute private consultation to show you how a certified financial planner like John can help you identify and implement the financial strategies that'll help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, big this time of year, and secure your legacy. So either call John and his team at Longhorn Wealth at 972-707-4900 or go online to longhornwealth.net. Schedule that free 90-minute private consultation with John today. Look at John giving a shout out to Blake Gideon, just being an adult about it. Sometimes you lose coaches. In fact, if you check out orangebloods.com, you've been following Anwar's reporting on who that next safeties coach is going to be. Anwar had a little update for you on that this morning. So go check that out at orangebloods.com. Jason, before we wrap up, anything else you want to hit?
Man, I think we've covered this. I feel like we've dabbled in a little bit of everything this week. So, yeah, like I said, stay tuned on Orange Blood's recruiting board this week or later this week. Under Armour camp this weekend, and then we'll have a bunch of coverage from that throughout the week. So, recruiting, it's dead period, but it's still, as you say, Chad, recruiting never stops. Still a pretty active week. So, quite a bit going on. So.
There you go. And look at this. One of our chatters says Jason's the GOAT. There it is.
Oh, that's my man, Kevin. Kevin's a good friend of mine, so I appreciate it, Kevin.
Discussion over, Kevin. There you go. Jason's the GOAT. It's been officially declared on the show today. Kevin, we appreciate you checking it out, and we certainly appreciate Jason's great work at orangebloods.com and here on Orange Bloods Live. We do the recruiting hour every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Coming up at 12, Ketch and I have House Divided. Football with Friends at 6 with Alex and Cody. Tonight at 8:30, we'll have an Outsiders where we must declare our overall Pick'em champion. Nobody won but Randy. We'll give you those details coming up. Why Randy got an additional free shirt, because nobody else could find a free shirt this whole damn season. Randy, I know you'll be there at 8:30 tonight. The rest of you jump on in. Anwar's got the old-fashioned for you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. Thanks to everybody for piling into that Specs chat, and we will talk to you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Jason will be coming off of that Under Armour event and tell us the very latest that he was able to see and find out up in the Dallas area at Melissa. Y'all take care until then, and we'll talk to you next week here on Orange Bloods Live. See ya.